In our last video, when we learned how to multiply polynomials, we were taking a monomial, one term, and multiplying it by a two-term, a three-term, or a four-term polynomial. Now we are going to start multiplying a binomial times a binomial. And with that, we're going to introduce a new acronym called FOIL. Each one of those letters stands for a particular word. F stands for first, O, outer, I for inner, L for last. So what's that mean? If I'm going to take 2x plus 3 and multiply it by x plus 5, I'm going to follow this pattern. So F, first, means I'm going to multiply the terms that appear first in each parentheses. 2x times x will give us 2x squared. Then I'm going to move on to O. O means outer for the two terms that are outside or the ones furthest away from each other. So 2x times a positive 5 will give us plus 10x. Inner means for inside, so I'm going to multiply the two terms that are inside or the two closest to each other. So 3 times x will give us positive 3x. And lastly, L for last, meaning the last two terms that appear in each parentheses. So 3 times 5 gives us positive 15. Now this foiled out first, but then I have to look in and see, do I have any like terms? And typically, when you FOIL, the like terms will appear in the middle. Inside, I've got 10x and 3x. 10 plus 3 will give us 13x. So my final answer for this FOIL problem is 2x squared plus 13x plus 15. There's another method that you could use to FOIL because some people don't like the arrows with the foiling, but we do like Punnett squares, and you probably have done a Punnett square in your biology class. What I do with the Punnett square is I take one of the parentheses and I write it on the top of the box, and I take the other parenthesis and I write it on the second box. And then I go through and I multiply each possibility. So in the first box, I'll take 4b and 3b to give us 12b squared. Then I'll go across, take negative 5 times 3b to give us negative 15b. Then I'll move down to the bottom, take 4b times 2, give us a positive 8b, and then I'll finish off doing negative 5 times positive 2 to give negative 10. And typically what happens for our like terms here is that this diagonal right here will be our like term. So I'm going to combine those together, negative 15b and 8b, to give us the negative 7b in the middle, and the other two terms will go on the outsides. So a final answer of 12b squared minus 7b minus 10. And you have the option to use either method that you would like. Now, FOILing is for whenever we take a binomial times a binomial. Now, what happens when I take a binomial times a trinomial? I can no longer use FOIL. But what I'm going to tell you to do is just multiply out all of the possibilities. That means the 6x has to get multiplied or distributed with all the terms that are in the second parenthesis. So when I do 6x times 2x squared, I'll get 12x cubed. 6x times negative 3x minus 18x squared. And then 6x times the negative 5 gives us negative 30x. But we have not used that plus 5 that's in the other parentheses, so I got to go back in and multiply all of those possibilities. 5 times 2x squared will give us the plus 10x squared. 5 times negative 3x, negative 15x. And 5 times negative 5 will give us negative 25. And to finish this off, I'm going to combine like terms. I'm going to go right down the row. 12x cubed. I look and see, do I have any other terms that have x cubes? You'll see that I do not, so then I write 12x cubed down. Then I move on to the x squareds. I have two terms that are x squareds. So negative 18x squared, positive 10x squared will give us a negative 8x squared. Then I move on to the x terms. Negative 30x and negative 40x will give us negative 45x. And finally, I don't have any other constants to combine with negative 25, so I'll write negative 25 to finish out my final answer. The last thing that I'm going to go over is a trinomial times a trinomial. Same concept. Every term in the first parenthesis has to get distributed through the second parenthesis. So there are 3 terms in the first, 3 in the second. Go through, multiply 2y squared with 3y squared minus 5y plus 2. Here's what I'll get from that. 6y to the fourth minus 10y cubed plus 4y squared. Now I'm going to go to the middle term, 3y, and distribute it through the second parenthesis. and I'll get positive 9y cubed minus 15y squared plus 6y. And the last term, the negative 1, I will distribute through 3 times, and I will get negative 3y squared minus 5y minus 2. And just like all the other problems that we've had, after we do the distributive property, we have to combine all of our like terms. And again, I'll go right down the row. I look to see first, do I have any other terms that have y to the 4th? I look through. I do not have any others, so I'll write 6y to the 4th. Move on to y to the 3rd powers. I have 2 terms with those, so negative 10 plus 9 will give us negative y cubed. I have 3 different terms this time that have y squareds, so 4, negative 15, and negative 3 will give us negative 14y squared. I have 2 terms of y, 6 and 5 will give us a positive 11y, and I don't have any other constants, so I'll write negative 2 down, and there's my final answer. So these are 3 different ways that we're going to practice multiplying polynomials together.